Now you get the awkward bit at the beginning. Are we live? It says we're live. Hello, everybody.
Hello.
I'm here with Gemma and Rach, and it's 8 o'clock. We're on time. Yay! I was just saying to Gemma, I'm going straight to bed after this. I've taken the top off. Pretty much, I'm half in my pajamas. You know, like smart. I've got pajama bottoms on, but you can't see those, so it's fine. Did you want to do a quick introduction of yourself, Gemma, and then you, Rach?
Yeah, no worries.
Okay, so I'm Gemma Curtis. Hello, evening. And I am an integrative counsellor using psychodynamic and person-centred. So it's very much about who you are as a person and kind of how you've come to be that person. Lots of interest in your past, your childhood, that kind of thing, patterns in relationships, etc.
Nice.
Great stuff. Sounds interesting. So I'm Rachel. I'm a cognitive behavioural therapist, psychotherapist. So I did a video this morning, so I'd encourage you to check that out. It just explains a little bit about what CBT entails in terms of that vicious cycle that we can get into. And I help people break out of that vicious cycle and find different ways of coping and different ways of thinking.
Nice. Amazing to have you on board. Thank you, ladies. Rach, your video this morning was so good. I was editing it and I was like taking notes at the same time. Like, I do this all the time. So yeah, if you haven't watched it yet, definitely make some time and watch that video. Cool. Okay, we have a lot of questions. And I don't want to eat into everyone's, you know, we could technically be here till like midnight. So we will get through what we can. If it gets to a point where we're like, oh, actually, there's still quite a lot of questions, we might split it into two. We might do another Q&A a little bit later on. But yeah, let's just see what we've got. Most of them came in through email. So I will start with number 1. I always think I'm lazy, and that's why I don't get anything done, and this makes me feel bad about myself, so I don't do anything because I feel like a failure, if that makes sense. How do I get out of that mindset? I feel like I could have written this one. And it's really interesting. I think we often, you know, think that it's laziness, which is a word that I hate because I'm like, I don't think anyone's, you know, actually lazy. I think that maybe it could be a culmination of things that are causing a lack of motivation. So Gemma, what do you think to that question? How to get out of that mindset?
Well, first of all, I'd be asking, like exactly like you said, lazy. What does that even mean to you as a word? And can we challenge that slightly and actually look at what you are doing? So rather than focusing on the things that you're not doing, could you think about the things you are doing, and then thinking a little bit more about breaking things down, perhaps? And I'm guessing this is probably where Rach is a bit more skilled than me in terms of, you know, actual strategies, that kind of thing. But for me, I think I would be very much focusing on where has that come from? You know, that thought of being lazy, and why is it not okay to not do things all the time?
Yeah, I agree. And Rach, I think in your video, in your lesson this morning, you kind of touch on that vicious cycle, don't you? So do you think that that's part of it? Do you think that's, you know, part of that mindset and how to get out of it?
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, that is one approach. So sort of looking at changing the way you respond to how you feel and the way you think. And I've just made some notes here about you know, responses to these questions. I keep looking down, that's what I'm looking at. So I've wrote down here, I suppose the word failure sort of jumped out to me there. That's quite a strong belief coming through, maybe. And I suppose looking at that and thinking, actually, what have I not failed at today? And even just sort of writing that question and seeking support from us, that's not failing, maybe. You know, that's an example of seeking help. And I suppose, again, sort of, I don't do anything. And that might not actually be true. If you have a look at that and think, actually, do you know, again, you've sought help. But what is it you do? Do you know, do you get up in the morning? Do you eat some bits through the day? Do you know, do you sometimes manage to go outside. So really sort of look at what you are doing. So that could be really helpful. Yeah, and just making sure those tasks are really small. So the video I did this morning, just making sure you start really small with it, and just build on it.
Yeah, I think that's the thing, isn't it? I think we sometimes think that motivation, we've got to climb Mount Everest to be successful. And actually, sometimes just getting out of bed and washing your hair and whatever, those things, especially in these times, are sometimes feel like we're climbing Mount Everest. And to be able to pat ourselves on the back and say, actually, I have done enough today, and not get into that kind of I'm a failure or I'm lazy mindset. Lovely. Okay, question 2. When I'm really low, I struggle to get motivated. I like to spend some time relaxing to try to make myself feel better if I'm sad, but then get stuck not doing anything productive. What can I do to push myself a bit if I'm feeling down so I don't end up doing nothing all the time? Rach, did you want to answer this one first?
Yeah, I think, again, sort of, I'm going to jump back to my video again and again through these questions this morning, but I think sort of structuring your time. So I'm the same, Joe. If I relax, I can relax all day, and then I think, well, I haven't done anything but relax. So, you know, trying to set a limitation to that and think, right, I'm going to relax for 30 minutes, you know, and then I suppose instead of expecting yourself to do something after that, just stand up. So I think, Bex, you talked about movement, didn't you? And how just getting up after 30 minutes of relaxing, just standing outside or going upstairs or just walking in your kitchen, you know, and then decide, well, what can I do now? You know, what is it I want to do now?
Yeah, kitchen disco. Gotta love a kitchen disco. Gets me out of any funk. Okay, Gemma, what do you think on this question?
I think I would be interested in what it is you're feeling in that moment, and that actually maybe your mind and your body are telling you that you need to actually think about what you're feeling. And that's why you can't kind of get past it to get motivated to do the next thing. It's perhaps a message from your unconscious just to say, okay, maybe we need to feel this thing, and maybe we just need to explore a little bit what's going on with this thing. And there are lots of different ways you can do that, therapy obviously being one. But, you know, just journaling, talking to a friend, like you said, getting up, because sometimes that obviously gets the old brain going. So it may be that there's something actually that's making you feel a bit stuck. So sometimes it's, and I think we're going to do more on this at some point, you know, about actually sitting with and trying to recognize your feelings, because it can be really hard.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's such a good point. I think sometimes we feel like we can't feel these feelings, and how do I get out of feeling down, you know? And sometimes we do just need to sit with them, absolutely, and be mindful of them, and you know, go through the process, like in Rachel's video this morning, understanding and recognizing those feelings, but not necessarily beating ourselves up that this is how we feel at this moment in time. Mm-hmm. Wonderful. Okay, question number 3. I think this is probably one of the most common questions for everyone at the moment. I'm feeling really scared and overwhelmed about the world going back to normal. I almost don't want it to. Do you have any advice, please? Thank you. And I can tell you, as someone that had agoraphobia and was in a self-imposed lockdown for a portion of my life, it is scary. Going back out into the world, whether, you know, it's because of a pandemic or just because you've kind of shut yourself in your house. So that is something that, again, I think we need to recognize and feel. And I think that a lot of people will be feeling as well. What do you think, Gemma?
I think do it at your pace. You don't have to go to a rave on the 21st of June. You know, it's very much, it is scary. We've been told how scary the world is for a year. Be afraid of everyone and everything. Everything you touch is going to give you a killer disease. So no wonder everyone feels anxious. So actually what you're experiencing is a really natural response to threat. And so go at your pace. There's no set rules. Just because friend A, like I said, is going to a rave on the 21st, doesn't mean that you have to. And it may be that friend B takes 6 months to feel comfortable socializing. It's at your pace, and like I said, it's not an unusual feeling, and it's not surprising considering what we've been bombarded with for the last year.
Yeah, absolutely. Rach, what do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree. It seems very normal, this. A lot of people I've been working with recently, just they don't want things to go back to normal because they don't know how they're going to cope. And, they've said, how am I going to sort of get a routine back that I used to have? Like, how am I even going to start trying to get that back? And like you said, Bex, it can be hard to get out into the world again, especially, Gemma, like you said, there's sort of been this virus and this fear that's been driven in us about the world and how scary it is. So just knowing that you're not alone with that problem, and just having some comfort in the fact that most of us are feeling like this. And I suppose we're swimming in uncertainty a little bit, aren't we, in terms of what's going to happen? Is it really going to end? Is there going to be another wave of COVID? So just recognising, actually, at this stage, I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen. And when the problems do occur, if they do, I will look at managing them then. And if you have to get in touch with a service to get some help with anxieties, that's absolutely fine.
Yeah, I think talking is a big thing here. All of us are feeling it underneath, but we're not necessarily telling everyone about it, and so you sometimes feel like, well, am I alone in this? Is everyone ready to go back out, go to a rave? And just opening up, I think, and just saying, this is how I feel, and then having that comfort of someone else saying, oh, I'm glad it's not just me. Yeah, this is how I feel too. I think that, that will help you and the people around you as well.
Yeah.
Okay. Next question. My question is, how do you tell the difference between not having any motivation and maybe it being a bigger problem like depression? Gemma, is that something you want to answer?
I mean, we can't diagnose. So your first port of call, if you think that it would be something bigger than a lack of motivation today, would be your GP. But in terms of, just your own feelings, probably I would say if it's been going on for a little while. I think lack of motivation kind of comes and goes as your day comes and goes and as life happens. But if you're feeling consistently low for a couple of weeks, then I think that's when you need to start kind of asking questions. And also if you feel like the joy has kind of been sucked out of everything, and because a lot of people think depression is just feeling sad, but actually often it can be feeling numb. So if you're not really feeling anything, then again, that's a time when I think it's worth pursuing perhaps, GP or therapy, whichever route you could, probably GP to start with and then therapy.
Yeah. Rach, what do you think?
Yeah, I've wrote down here exactly the same thing. Go and check it out with your GP, or you can access perhaps improving access to psychological therapy service in your local area. So IAPT, you might know it as, to a lot of them do self-referrals now, so you can refer yourself to see somebody perhaps, because it can be quite scary to, I think, make that step to get help sometimes. And there are sources of information online that might give you perhaps a bit of an idea as to whether it could be depression. So there is a website called Every Mind Matters, which is an NHS website. So there's a part on low mood there. So have a little look at that and just see if you can maybe relate to some of those symptoms. If perhaps, there might be depression.
Yeah, I think we'll put some resources up at the end of this as well, in case anyone wants to delve further or, they want to access any of the services that we speak about. I think if we pop those in the comments after this, then it will just be helpful for people that think, actually, yeah, I do need to talk to someone. Wonderful. Okay. Next one. I really enjoyed Rachel's video earlier and the one Bex did yesterday. But what if you don't have any energy to even do those things, even if they'll help? Now, I also feel this one, like as as someone that comes and gives these lessons, some people think, oh, you know, you must feel motivated all the time and you spring out of bed, you do some yoga, but that's just not the case. And I know Gemma and Rachel both nodding your head like, yeah. So Rach, what do you think about this?
I hear this all the time, and especially as a response to the technique that I did a video on this morning, because I'm supposed to sit there and listen to that for 20 minutes. It does involve quite a lot of stuff, but you can work your way through it very gradually, and it is all about really small gradual change. And I suppose thinking about fatigue, I guess. You know, if fatigue is a problem that's contributing to that lack of energy, it might be worth going back to basics, you know, and drinking lots of water, staying hydrated, trying to sort of get your sleep in order a little bit more. So always looking at the basics first before, I suppose, expecting more of yourself.
Yeah. And Gemma?
I think sometimes it can take more energy to fight yourself than to just allow things to happen. Yeah. So I think sometimes if that's the case, then don't do it. I give you permission. Have the day off. Yeah. Have the hour off. Have this 10 minutes off. You know, whatever it is you need. I think sometimes we can get very cross with ourselves because we feel we should. But if you can take out the should and actually just allow yourself to be whatever you need to be in that moment, you can come back to it. There's no schedule, there's no time limit. You know, it's very much about what's right for you in that moment. So I think sometimes it's just letting yourself off the hook a little bit and going, well, I'll try again tomorrow.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's something we see a lot since January, since doing these challenges. A lot of people get worried like, oh, you know, I can't keep up, or I'm not doing them every day, and therefore, you know, I'm failing. And you know, I try and say as often as possible, these will always be here. You can come back and you can do these. You have to do them at a time that's right for you. And if, you know, you looked at the matrix that I made yesterday and you think, not a chance today, like my brain's not going to deal with that today, then fine. Like when you feel like you have the energy, then come back to it. And I think that's the important thing. As long as you're doing it at a time that is right for you, and like Gemma said, not fighting against yourself, then that's the best that we could ever ask for. So okay, next question. Need some help to stay calm when my son is having a meltdown and makes me feel nervous. So Gemma, staying calm.
So again, lots of kind of different techniques. It's a little bit trial and error in terms of finding what works for you, and sometimes it's not always the same thing. So it's quite good to have, you know, a little toolkit of different things. Rachel's probably much better at this, giving the toolkits than me. But I would also be exploring how that feels when your son has a meltdown. You know, what is going on for you in that moment, and what do you need? Because I imagine a lot of your focus will be on what they need in that time, as it needs to be. But also when everything is calmer, perhaps revisiting how you feel in that moment and what it is that you need to help you cope with him. And it's something that probably needs a bit more kind of personal exploration. It's quite difficult to give a general answer to that. But don't be afraid to think about what you need in that moment too.
Yeah. Rach?
Yeah, absolutely agree with this one, Gemma. No sort of practical way of coping with this in terms of just noticing how you feel. Just notice that frustration, you know, don't try and do anything with it, just notice it, you know. And then perhaps, you know, breathing in a little bit, just being aware of your breath, you know, trying to just have a bit of a breathing technique going on if you feel like that will be helpful to ride out that frustration, you know, and just sit with it. And there's some amazing breathing techniques that I've been watching. I can't think of a name, I can't remember a name, but it was last night. Somebody was on doing breathing techniques. Who is it, Bex?
Charlie,
yeah. So things like that could be perhaps helpful.
Yeah, definitely breathing. Charlie is amazing. And also the meditation, and maybe just kind of, saying, I know that I have to deal with this in this moment right now, but how will I look after myself after this moment has passed? I am giving my all to my son right now. After this has ended, I will go and I will spend some time on myself and look after myself. Yeah, I think that's really important.
And sometimes grounding as well. If you can feel yourself kind of getting out of control a little bit, and I can never remember how many of each thing you're supposed to do, but using your senses again, Rachel, this is probably your bread and butter, but where you count things that you can see, smell, hear, taste, feel, and it just brings you back into your body in that moment and kind of gets you off the ceiling a little bit, because sometimes it can all just feel a bit.
Yeah, I can never remember how many it is as well. I think it's 5 things you see. I remember that, and then I get lost on 4, 3, 2, 1. Yeah. One thing you taste, maybe. I'm not sure. But yeah, no, grounding techniques as well. Okay. Any advice on poor motivation and constant procrastination? I feel like these two go hand in hand, lack of motivation and procrastination. So, Rach, what do you think?
I think it touches on stuff that we might have perhaps already covered in terms of, how do I get motivated? If it feels impossible. And again, just making it so easy for yourself, rather than sort of ruminating about, how you're not doing what you think you should be doing. Just think, what is it that I can do today? One simple, manageable thing.
Yeah. Gemma?
So sometimes when I listen to clients, the way they speak to themselves is, I'm supposed to be non-judgmental, but I am totally judging. It's awful. And so I think sometimes it's about also thinking about how you're speaking to yourself. Would you speak to your best friend or your child in that way? That whole kind of, right, come on, you need to get on with it. What are you doing just sitting there doing nothing? Or why can't you just, and that kind of frustration. And so sometimes it's also about thinking about how you're talking to yourself. If you wanted your child to do something, or your best friend or your sister, or somebody you love, how would you speak to them? Would you be barking orders at them and shouting at them immediately if they didn't jump off the sofa and straight away do the thing? Or would you be kinder? Would you be asking? Would you be seeing what they need? So I think sometimes that can be helpful as well, just kind of just checking how you're talking to yourself and maybe being a bit kinder with the words you use.
Yeah, I think that's such a great point. I mean, my husband probably say I do bark at him and he does jump off the sofa. But yeah, no, I think that's, again, it comes down to how we're talking to ourselves. And this week, I've got lots and lots and lots more motivation and procrastination tips and tricks. And there'll be a huge post at the end of the week. But these are just tips and tricks. What sometimes we forget is that we could try all the tips and tricks in the world, but until we actually focus on maybe why we are feeling that way and the way that we talk to ourselves, all the tips and tricks in the world are not going to help. So getting kind of into that nitty gritty of, well, actually, am I being kind to myself here? Setting a timer for 25 minutes and doing the Pomodoro technique, which you'll learn on Friday, is not necessarily going to help me if there's something more going on and is the reason I'm procrastinating. Okay, next question. How are we doing for time? We're doing okay, actually. My housework has become unbearable because I've left it so long, and now it feels like too big of a problem to fix, and I can't get motivated to do it. Gemma?
My first, if I'm being completely honest, is get a cleaner. That obviously may not be possible. That was a bit of a joke, but it is hard when something becomes hugely overwhelming. But maybe think about what are the non-negotiables for you? Like, is it the hoovering? Is it the floor that's bugging you? In which case, just hoover. Is it that the bathroom, the toilet needs a wipe? In which case, just do that. And, just kind of each moment that you feel you can, pick the thing that's bugging you the most and do that.
Yeah, Rach?
I'm sort of sat here thinking, me too, do you know? I've got loads of clothes I need doing all the time. And because I've got a 2-year-old, a puppy, and I work a lot, and my husband works as well, we just don't have time. We'd love a cleaner, Gemma. We really would love a cleaner.
Me too.
And me.
But what I've done, so my trick here, which has come from me, no sort of theory or whatnot, just to have cleaning products around the house if it's safe to do so, so out the way of reach from people or children. You know, so I have upstairs a little cupboard where I have some cleaning stuff and some cloths, and then the same downstairs. So I have some in the kitchen and some in the downstairs bathroom as well. So it's always easy to sort of grab a wipe and some spray and just quickly do a little bit while I'm in that room. So that's really helped me personally. So maybe try.
Yeah. Making it easy, I think, is the thing, isn't it? And that's a motivation trick for anything in the world. If you make it easy and you take away that friction of, oh, well, I have to go and find the cleaning stuff, and then where did I put them up, and, you know, all of that kind of thing, the harder it is to clean, the less like you will clean. So taking away that friction and having the cleaning stuff everywhere all around the house. I mean, you'll want to clean because it's there.
Yes, good idea.
Tripping over the mop. That works with pretty much anything, like exercise. I always say, get your exercise clothes out, your trainers out, put your mat out on the floor, you know, the night before, and then you've got no excuse because it's there. But yeah, making it easy is one of my favorite tricks to getting stuff done. Okay. I always get bursts of motivation for like a week, and then I fall off the wagon again, especially with stuff like this. How can I stick to things better? I think this is very, very normal. Gemma, what do you think?
Yeah, and it's I don't know if whoever asked the question watched or read your ice cube analogy the other day, and that's what kind of came to mind for me with that is, you know, it's very easy to have motivation in the beginning, but it takes a really long time to form a habit. So again, it's perhaps examining why you feel so motivated in the first place, like with the thing that you're doing. What is it about that thing that's making you want to do it? And then what is it about what's happening that's making you lose interest? You know, it's kind of specific, I guess, a little bit, because the thing that pops into my head is like eating well. You know, I think everybody goes through that where they're like, right, I'm going to eat healthily, and it lasts 3 days, you eat nothing but salad, and then you have a Mars bar and it all falls apart. And yeah, pizza. You know, so I think it's about examining what's going on and how you're feeling, and sometimes that can be related to hormone fluctuations. Sometimes there is a physical thing going on there in terms of your mood and your motivation. But yeah, just keeping a bit of a log of how you're feeling in those moments and what the motivation does for you, how that picks you up, and then how you feel once it starts to flag and how you behave in that. You know, again, it's difficult to kind of generally talk about it, but you know, if you can think about it in those terms, you might be able to kind of sustain, maybe not have such an explosive motivation at the start, but you know, maybe a little bit more slow and steady wins the race.
Rach.
Yeah, absolutely agree, Gemma. That's fab, isn't it? Just trying to recognize as well when you feel really driven to do stuff and you're on a roll, notice that happening and think, actually, here I go again. This leads to me feeling exhausted. I've learned this. And actively trying to make some time to relax as well. So your fatigue levels, I suppose we only have so much energy per day, don't we? You know, we restore it at night and start again. So just trying to use that wisely so that you're using some energy, relaxing a little bit, using a little bit more. So there's a nice sort of steady fluctuation rather than loads of energy, use it all, burn out, and then tired for a week.
Yeah, I agree. And I think as Gemma said, that the ice cube thing, the 1%, like you have to kind of imagine it's a slow process, you know, to get to where you want to be. If anyone, an elite athlete, you know, the best business people in the world, they don't just spring into being amazing and now everything's great and they're all billionaires and winning Olympic gold medals. Like, it is a process, and trying to like bottle that motivation at the beginning and kind of spreading it out, I think is a great way of doing it, because you're not exhausting yourself in the beginning and going, I'm going to do every single lesson, I'm going to go to every yoga and do this and do that. And then the day that you miss one, you think, well, I've just ruined it all now, completely ruined it. Never mind, not going to bother doing this anymore. I've ruined it for myself. And if we'd been a bit more steady throughout, then I think it's much easier to go, oh, okay, well, I'm going to have a day off today, and then I might do 2 tomorrow, and I might, do this, that, and the other. So, yeah, I think that is an important lesson that I still need to learn. And I like what you said about hormones as well, Gemma, because that plays a big part, especially for us ladies and motivation. So yeah. Okay, next question. I see all of the time that a structured routine works really well for people. However, I cannot have a regular routine as I work a mixture of early and late shifts with no set pattern for these. Is there anything you would recommend for me? I've got a rough plan of activities I want to do every day, but sometimes can struggle doing them because I don't have a set time to do certain tasks. Rach, what do you think about this?
This is an interesting one. I used to work early and late shifts years ago, and it is really difficult to just establish any kind of routine, really. Because I suppose if you're doing a late shift, you try and make the most of that morning. And if you're on an early shift, you might be exhausted for the rest of the day and feeling like, oh, I haven't got everything done what I need to get done. So just creating maybe some flexibility within your week and what you expect yourself to do. So perhaps instead of breaking it down into each day what you should do, just make note of things throughout the week that you want to do. And just when you feel like it, have a little look at that list and think, right, I can do this today. If it doesn't happen that week, just carry it over. Just carry it over to the next week. I've got on my agenda a book that I need to read, and it just keeps carrying on to the next week. And I'm on my 4th week now.
You will read that book.
I will read.
Yeah. Gemma.
Yeah, and I mean, it's about maybe establishing some routines with the things you can control. So, I mean, I don't know if you're able to schedule your breaks so you're at least eating at the same times every day. Potentially still having the same bedtime. I mean, it depends on your shift pattern, but maybe, yeah, just focusing on the things that you can control. And, like Rach said, having a broader idea of what it is you want to do rather than putting yourself under pressure on particular days. Yeah. And it's hard. Shift work's hard.
Yeah. I think the Anti-Burnout Matrix that I put up yesterday might be a good place to start with this, because it's based on your physical energy and your mental energy. So like Rach said, if you put in your week to-do list and then, all the things that you want to do in the week, and then plot them on your physical and mental energy levels, and then go, okay, so throughout the week, I want to get all this done. And then just looking like, how do I feel today? I've got absolutely no physical energy because I've just come off shift. I do have a bit of mental energy left. I can, read some of that book, Rach. So yeah, just trying to not necessarily say, I'm going to do this at 7 o'clock in the morning, or we do this at 8 o'clock in the morning, basing it more around your energy levels and not kind of getting tied into a specific schedule as such, just doing it when it's right for you. Okay. How can planning / prioritizing / organizing across key areas become successful both in and out of work? I sometimes find that one falls away at the expense of the other. And I think this is very much a work-life balance situation. Gemma, what do you think?
I think that a work-life balance doesn't always exist the same all the time. Does that make sense? So there will be times where work takes over a bit. There will be times where home takes over a bit. And I think it's accepting that that's okay. And managing your energy levels accordingly, I guess. And I think sometimes questioning why you're doing what you're doing. How does this feel to be doing this? And what is my motivation? Is my motivation that I feel I should, and that if I don't do this, something terrible is going to happen? And maybe, you know, kind of challenging some of those thoughts, and actually, what do I need today? You know, do I need to be productive at my work, or do I need to be productive at home? What is my priority in this situation? And kind of putting yourself back in the middle of it, rather than trying to please everyone. You know, kind of, what do I need to achieve to feel like I've made the best of this? And that can fluctuate by minute, I guess, sometimes, let alone day. You know, so again, it's sometimes it's just rolling with that a little bit and letting yourself off the hook. You don't have to be perfect everywhere all the time. You can be good enough.
Yeah. Rach.
Yeah, I just wrote here expectations. Think about the expectations that you have on yourself. And, you know, you might be thinking, this is what I definitely should be doing. You know, but really think about how much energy that takes, and is it even realistic? You know, do you have the time? How much time would all of that take? So sort of looking at the challenges that are in the way of you achieving these things and thinking, yeah, is it actually realistic?
Yeah, I think technology has grown way quicker than us as humans, and so things like our workloads are so much bigger than they were 10, 20, 30 years ago. And we have this pressure on ourselves now to think, I need to always be at work. You know, I've got my emails on my phone, I've got my laptop. Well, most of us are working from home now, if we are working. So we feel like we're always switched on at work, and we always need to be switched on at home. And we kind of, you know, we're not designed to do that. We're not supposed to be on 24-hour a day email alert. Like, that's just not good for us. And I think having set times in place where you say, I'm turning my email off, I'm turning my laptop off, this is now home time, is really important. And I don't have my emails on my phone for that reason. Some people email me and they're like, oh, you know, I thought you'd get back to me. No, tomorrow after 9 o'clock you will get an email. And that is really important, because we are just surrounded by work now, and it's impossible to switch off. So make sure that you're putting those boundaries in place, that this is when I'm going to focus on home time, and this is when I'm going to focus on work. And then you're not stretching yourself too thin and finding it too hard to balance everything. And even then, I mean, I think it is impossible to balance everything all of the time. You know, I do really good at work. Home is fairly tidy, but then I don't talk to my friends for 2 weeks. So trying to fit everything in is, you know, a hard task. And not beating yourself up over it is an important thing. Now I've lost the questions. I was jabbering away. Okay, I think we've only got a couple of questions left. Oh, in fact, we're on our last question. Okay, how do you help others and create boundaries for yourself, i.e. be supportive but not take responsibility for others' hardships / problems without feeling guilty? Good question, Gemma.
Trained as a therapist, it takes 3 years. No, it's a difficult one. And actually, again, I would be thinking about what it is that you get, what need it is that's met for you when you help other people. It can be a defense. If I'm busy looking out there, then I don't need to look too closely in here. So you end up taking on more and more, because then you don't have to have a think about what's happening there. It can be all kinds of reasons, you know. It can be historical family stuff about that's the role that you've played. So it can be interesting to think about your role in groups, in family relationships, in one-to-one relationships. You know, what role do you play in those situations usually? In terms of setting boundaries, I know this can be very tricky. Say no. Or I'll get back to you. You know, boundaries can be hard, but actually I think you'll find the more you set them, the more that people respect them. And it's really hard to do it initially, because you know, as the question says around guilt, but the only person you're responsible for is yourself. And if you're not taking care of yourself, then you can't give out anything to anyone else. And, you know, whether that's as a parent, as a friend, as a therapist, as, you know, a human being, if you're not making sure that you're not overloaded, then you're not going to be able to support anyone else. So it's kind of two strands to it. You know, the first is, what are you getting out of being the helper? And do you need to address that in some way? Is there something going on for you in that? And then secondly, gently setting those boundaries. And actually, people who love and respect you, they're not going anywhere. So putting a couple of no's in and a couple of I'll get back to you later won't affect the friendship. And if it does have any impact, it'll only be positive. So actually, you could end up weeding out some people that maybe are not the best for you.
Yeah, really, really good points. I'm like, I'm writing notes. Yeah. Rach.
I'm guilty of this all the time. So I always help other people and sometimes don't always look after me as well, you know, enough. So I think sometimes labeling that as, you know, that makes me a very kind person, but also, you know, what can I do about this to make sure that I'm okay as well? And you might not get it 100%. I never do. Sometimes I have days where I put 100%, 110% effort into, you know, helping people, and I love it. But then I'm exhausted. I think I never learn. You know, but just labeling that as, yeah, I'm a kind person. How can I balance this a little bit more, just to make sure that I'm okay? Having those check-ins with yourself and noticing the impact that it's having on you. Do you know, what is it that's happening? Are you tired? Are you not able to spend time with friends and family as effectively? You know, that quality of life elsewhere is not as good. You know, and think about if this was a friend in the same situation, like you said earlier, Gemma, you know, what would you suggest to them? So that's it's a really good issue that I have as well sometimes.
Yeah, I think it's a great question. And actually, Gemma saying, you know, the part that you play in your family might have something to do with it. I'm like, yes, I can see it now. Gemma, I think we need a session. They are all of the questions that we have. It has been an eye-opener for me and hopefully for everyone that has been watching it. I definitely think we should do more of these because it's nice to, you know, ask these open questions and perhaps not feel quite so alone in the way that we're feeling. So if people do want more of these, then we will definitely do more of these. If you have any other questions, then you can always pop them in the comments. And it might be that we either, you know, get back to you straight away if it's something super urgent, or we can save them for next time we organise a live. And I think putting some resources in the comments as well. In fact, Gemma, I think I have, you sent me a lot of wonderful resources, so I think I will pinch that and pop that in the comments. But thank you everyone for being here and spending time with us this evening. I know it's something different to what we usually do, but hopefully it's been fascinating and interesting and you've learnt some things and had your questions answered. Yeah, and thank you, Gemma and Rach. Welcome to the club.
Thank you.
Cool. Well, thank you, everyone. I'm going straight to bed. Have a lovely evening, and I'll see you all again soon.
Bye.
Bye.